Listen up, kids, it is time for class, and today's lesson is Genie 101, where we are going to learn everything you need to know about Disney's Genie Plus service. And strap in, because this one might get a little bit controversial. Alrighty friends, I am here today at Disney's Hollywood Studios, and I am going to be breaking down Disney's Genie service Wikipedia style. We are going to chat about everything you need to know about this controversial service. That includes what Genie is, how it came to be, kind of the basic rules and breakdown of it, the pros and cons of the service, and the future of Genie. And because we're all ears, our 5 best tips and tricks too for the service. And I can promise you, you won't be able to fully understand Disney World without this, so you're going to want to pay attention. So as we're getting started today, the first thing you need to understand is what even is this crazy Genie thing that everybody keeps talking about. Well, Disney Genie is a service that has been around since about October 2021, and it is Disney's version of skip the line service. So what does that mean? They used to call this the Fast Pass system. Disney Genie Plus replaced Disney's old Fast Pass system, so if that's confusing you, maybe that's why. The free tier of Genie is going to be the only free tier. It is the first tier. First, it allows you to utilize the tip board in the My Disney Experience app. And if you don't know, the My Disney Experience app is an app that is curated to help you around Disney World. It's going to show you wait times, tell you where to find characters, let you mobile order your food, shop in stores without going through those crazy long lines, and a lot more. So what is that tip board though? The tip board suggests different times for shows, rides, and mobile ordering at restaurants, with a few other things. It creates your itinerary based on preferences that you give it. So before you start your day here at Disney World, you're going to go into the tip board and you're going to tell it what you're interested in, what rides you're most prioritizing, and different aspects like that. After you tell the Genie what rides, shows, characters, and events that you value the most on your trip, it will kind of create a plan with those things in mind. So the thing is people don't really utilize this tier all that much. Yes, it's free, but it doesn't always give you the best suggestions. And that's because at the end of the day, Genie really is to help crowd control. So it's going to move you around to part of the parks that maybe aren't super busy, and oftentimes there's a reason it's not busy at that time. So what are examples of those free things? It's going to be things like lunch at Tortuga Tavern over in Magic Kingdom. And Tortuga's not our favorite option, so that's why it's less crowded. Or even rope dropping Small World. That's probably not the best use of your rope drop time, but there's not going to be a lot of crowds there, so that's why the tip board is going to suggest it to you. Because sometimes these suggestions are a little bit iffy, we maybe recommend kind of checking it and seeing if it's the best suggestion for you and your family. Sure, Disney might say it's a great time to go do it, and it could be, but it might not be the best way to utilize your time. So kind of check it and don't necessarily follow that tip board to a T. One way that people commonly use this tip board is kind of a way to check the wait times and show times of their priorities, since the tip board does push those preferences to the top of your list. It's kind of helpful in that way. This also can be helpful when you're booking your next lightning lanes, which we'll get into what that is in a little bit, so you don't have to scroll to the bottom of the tip board when you're booking. People will also utilize the predictive wait times and dining suggestions from the tip board that kind of help them determine to go wait for an attraction or what time to head to their favorite restaurant. These suggestions actually can be pretty helpful to avoid long wait times at popular restaurants or even rides. So even though it's not perfect, take it into consideration and then decide what's best for you and your crew. So all of that free stuff, first tier of Genie, out of the way. Let's talk second tier. So this is going to be where you start paying to skip the lines here in Disney World. This is going to be the first of the 2 paid services involved with Disney Genie Plus, all right? So first off, let's talk price, because that's what everybody's curious about. This tier allows you to skip most of the lines in Disney World and can cost anywhere from $15 to $29 per person per day, depending on crowd levels. So one thing that I already said, but is important to say twice, this grants you access to almost all of the lightning lane lines here in Disney World. So first off, what the heck is a lightning lane? Not everybody knows. A lightning lane is a special line at certain attractions and experiences that lets guests skip the line or even have special seating at shows that can help them save time in lines for guests who purchase said lightning lanes. All of that's a lot of ways to say there's a special line that you can skip, the standby line. That's what a lightning lane is. Grants you access to most of the lines throughout Disney World, not the most popular rides though. We'll talk about that in a second. That's really all the second tier is. It's going to let you skip most of the lines. So the final tier of all of this complicated Genie-ness is the individual lightning lane tier. And yes, that is different than the lightning lanes that we just talked about. So this tier, the individual Lightning Lane tier, is a separate fee from the Genie Plus tier that we just talked about. It is also date-based, and it can range anywhere from an additional $15 to $29 on top of the $15 to $29 that you already paid for Genie Plus. So yes, on the busiest days per year, guests can pay up to $60 per person to skip the lines in Walt Disney World. Each park has one attraction that operates under this individual Lightning Lane status. Hollywood Studios has Rise of the Resistance, Animal Kingdom has Flight of Passage, Epcot has Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind, and Magic Kingdom has Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. Now I will say, Tron has kind of shaken that up a little bit because Tron now offers a second individual Lightning Lane in Magic Kingdom. So that's 3 different payments that you might have to pay if you want to skip the lines at Magic Kingdom. It's important to note that you can buy an individual Lightning Lane on its own. You do not have to buy Genie Plus and then the individual Lightning Lane. If you just want the individual Lightning Lane, you can buy just that. But if you want to buy both, you can buy both. So the nice thing to understand about Genie Plus is that these Genie Plus services guarantee guests roughly 2 to 3 lines skipped per day. But you know, because we're all ears, we've put that to the test. And if you take our tips and tricks, we can prove to you that you can skip way more than just that 2 to 3. If you're curious to see how many you can get in a day, if you're really pushing it, you can go check out our full How Many Lightning Lanes in One Day video can you get with Quincy and Fry Bucket. And I promise you that number is going to surprise you. Now I will say I did wake up this morning around 6:30, went ahead and purchased Genie Plus for my day, and today is a peak day because it was $29. But luckily we're going to show you a few tips and tricks with that and how to use it a little bit. So the history of Genie Plus is actually pretty simple when it comes down to all of the little details. Disney Genie Plus replaced Disney's FastPass system, which was really well loved by fans who knew how to use it. What was FastPass? Well, it was introduced in 1999, and Disney introduced FastPass as the first ever reservation and skip the line system. This was a free system, and it lasted until 2014. In 2014, Disney then introduced FastPass Plus. This was the updated version of FastPass. It was only available at Walt Disney World because Disneyland still had FastPass, and then later they updated that to MaxPass, but different conversation. But FastPass at Disney World significantly changed the original system because it introduced advanced reservations for skipping the lines, and it was still free. So did you follow all that? FastPass, FastPass Plus, both free. That's the key takeaways here. So that's what Genie replaced, but why did it happen? How did we get to Genie? The demand for FastPass really started to grow, and people who loved the system, they really knew how to use it, but people who didn't know how to use it would get left out of a lot of the big rides. So when COVID hit and the pandemic closed the parks around the world, Disney decided to reinvent FastPass Plus and reevaluate that system. Since FastPass got pretty complicated and a little bit overused by people who knew how to use it, Disney's solution for the issue of the families who didn't really have equal access to that skip the line service was to make the selections on the day of your trip through Genie Plus. Genie Plus, just like FastPass, also serves as a way to move people through the parks and as crowd control. So thanks to overuse and unintentional exclusions, it was time for a new service. Genie Plus was born. If you want an even more in-depth breakdown though of Genie Plus and how it happened, you can go check out my former cast member reveals why Genie Plus happened video up on the channel now, and it explains it a lot more in depth. So long story short for all of that, it just means that FastPass essentially got overused to the point where it was time for a new system. It had been almost 20 years, so they figured now's a good time to switch it up. So now that we know what the system is and how we got to where we're using the system, I think the most important part of the system is knowing how to use it. So in my opinion, this is the scariest part for some people, is just learning how to use the service. But don't stress, because it's kind of like riding a bike. Once you know how to use it, you're set for life. And honestly, once we break it down with you, you're not going to have any trouble. You're going to get it. So let's break down how you're going to buy Genie Plus on the day of your trip. So first things first, you need to make sure you have that valid Disney theme park reservation and ticket. Without those, this is a no-go. This is a system you cannot utilize without those two things. So from the main menu on that My Disney Experience app that we talked about earlier, you are going to select My Disney Genie Day. That's where you're also going to find out the price. You're not going to know the price until the day of your trip. So this is when you're going to find out. Then you're going to select that My Day tab and then get Genie Plus for the day. That's what you're going to hit after that. Guests can purchase Genie starting at midnight on the day of their trip. And honestly, on the busiest days in Walt Disney World, so spring break, summer vacation, we recommend buying it at midnight. If you want, you know, you can wait a little bit later, but Genie can sell out, and a lot of people don't know that. So we recommend buying it ASAP during the summer and spring break time. Our recommendation is always budget for that $29, so that way if it's the highest price, you already have it in the budget, no big deal. And if it's less, then you have a little bit of wiggle room financially. See, okay, purchasing easy. You guys have got that down pat, so no big deal. You know how to purchase Genie, now we've purchased it. Let's get into how to actually use Genie Plus. So first things first, the most important thing to understand is you're going to book a Genie Plus Lightning Lane one at a time. Starting at 7 a.m., guests can book their first Lightning Lane of the day, like I did today with Slinky Dog Dash. At the same time, at 7 a.m., Disney Resort guests can actually purchase their first individual Lightning Lane for the day. So normally we recommend going for that Lightning Lane selection first and then doing the individual if you have both of those options available to you, or if you really can do this and you have two cell phones, having one person in your party book the Lightning Lane and then a second person book that individual Lightning Lane. If you aren't staying on Disney World property though, people can purchase their individual Lightning Lanes when the park opens. Time will vary, so make sure you double check that. But if you are not staying on Disney World property in a Disney World resort, you cannot purchase your individual Lightning Lane until the park opens. Now I will say there are going to be different priorities based on our recommendations per park. There are going to be 3 top priorities per park that we're going to recommend in case you're not sure which priorities you should make for your Lightning Lane selections. So for Magic Kingdom, we recommend getting Jungle Cruise, Peter Pan Flight, and Big Thunder Mountain as your top 3 priorities. We recommend starting with Jungle Cruise and Peter Pan's Flight, definitely, because they are some of the most popular and those Lightning Lanes will sell out before the end of the day. In Hollywood Studios, we recommend Slinky Dog Dash, Tower of Terror, and Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. Slinky Dog Dash in particular is one of the most popular rides in all of Disney World, and that one will go quickly. By the time I got to the park today, about an hour after the park opened, all of the Lightning Lanes for Slinky Dog Dash were gone for the day. Over in Epcot, we are going to recommend that you go for Remy's Ratatouille Adventure, Frozen Ever After, and Test Track as your top 3. And then in Animal Kingdom, it's going to be Na'vi River Journey, Kilimanjaro Safaris, and Expedition Everest. And you might think, oh, Na'vi River Journey, are you sure? Yes, 100%. That one is going to go, and it's not worth a long wait. So there are going to be 2 different ways that it comes to booking your second Lightning Lane of the day. The first of these 2 ways is once the park is open, you go and utilize that first Lightning Lane that you booked, and then immediately after that, you can go ahead and book your second Lightning Lane. If you utilize that first Lightning Lane that you booked at 7 a.m., once you get to the park within the first 2 hours of opening, so for example, today Hollywood Studios opened at 8:30. If I had used my Slinky Dog Dash Lightning Lane by 10:30 and went and tapped in, I could immediately make a second Lightning Lane selection. Now the second option is to utilize what Disney refers to as a 2-hour cool down. This is where a lot of people get pretty confused. So this is if your first Lightning Lane selection of the day is more than 2 hours after the park opening time. Once that cool down is over, the full 2 hours, that is when you get to make your second Lightning Lane selection. So that's what I will be utilizing today. This morning when I got up at 7, I booked a Slinky Dog Dash Lightning Lane for 11:30 today. The park opened at 8:30, so that means at 10:30, my 2-hour cool down was over and I could go ahead and book my second Lightning Lane of the day, which was Tower of Terror. If my Slinky Dog had been before 10:30, so say it had been at 9:30, once I tapped in, I could have gotten a second Lightning Lane, but that wasn't my situation. I had to wait the full 2 hours and then make a second selection. So you've always been able to modify your Lightning Lanes in one way or another, but now through Genie you can modify your Lightning Lanes and cancel your old ones in one step. So how do you do that? In the Disney Genie service, you're going to select the Tipboard or the My Day tab, either one will work. Tap the Lightning Lane you want to modify and a short little menu will appear. From the menu selection, you can tap the change that you want. Earlier if that's an option, or later if you want it to be. This is where you're going to really want to work on your refreshing, your thumb scrolling skills. Now, modifying your time doesn't mean you're going to get that perfect time right away. That's something we have experienced. If you sit and focus on refreshing, oftentimes an earlier time will pop up. That happened to me today with my Tower of Terror Lightning Lane, which you guys can see here. Even though mine was only about 15 minutes earlier, that's 15 minutes earlier that I don't have to wait to go to Tower of Terror. Now, this is not going to be guaranteed always, but we have found it works a lot of the time if you're willing to stay on your phone and constantly refresh. But we get if you don't necessarily want to do that. One recommendation I also make is that you need to double check to make sure that new experience time that you chose or choosing a different ride is correct before you confirm it. This is really important because you might not have actually grabbed an earlier time and it might accidentally be later. Once you have done all of those fun steps and you have triple checked your time, that's when you're going to hit confirm and done, and it is going to make your new modified lightning lane. It is finally time for my first lightning lane of the day that we're going to be using, and that's Slinky Dog. Slinky Dog actually went down earlier this morning and was down for quite a while. So that means I got an experience redemption pass. I can use it for a lot of different things, but I personally want to ride Slinky Dog and it's my time. So here we go. Hey. One thing I want to stress is that not all of the attractions are included with Genie Plus. So there are going to be things that don't offer lightning lanes at all. And also lightning lanes work a little bit differently for shows than with attractions. For shows, like for example, Beauty and the Beast live on stage here in Hollywood Studios, you don't have an entire hour for that return time for your lightning lane. The return time for shows is roughly 30 minutes before a show starts. So example, Beauty and the Beast live on stage starts at 11 today, and the lightning lane time starts at 10:30 for that. If you miss the return time, you're just gonna miss the show. Just like anything in the world though, Genie Plus is going to have pros and cons to this system. So let's break down what are the pros and what are the cons, and when are the best times to use Genie and when maybe you should avoid it. So some cons for the service is that first off, you're only guaranteed 2 to 3 lightning lanes a day. And you don't know if they're going to be good ones. That's a pretty low number in my opinion. Even though with FastPass you were guaranteed 3 lightning lanes a day, I don't know. We just think it should be a little bit more if you're going to pay upwards of $30 per person. That's another thing. That's another con. It can get semi-pricey. If you're looking to get Genie Plus and individual lightning lanes in your day, it can cost almost $60 per person, which that's not our favorite price to say. Another con is you're probably going to be on your phone for a majority of the day if you're trying to maximize Genie Plus. That's not our favorite thing. You're coming to Disney World to have a good time with your friends or your family, or maybe even just yourself, and you don't really necessarily want to be on your phone. So we don't love that you have to be constantly tuned in to get the most out of the service. Another thing is that the rules changed quite a bit when the service began in October 2021, so a lot of people struggle to remember the new rules. Thankfully, that's what we're for, is to remind you and to help you understand them. Another con is you can only book 1 at a time. With FastPass, you could book 3 60 days in advance. If you didn't know how to use that system though, you got left out, so that's a pro and con in and of itself. Another con is that there's no true option for annual pass holders. With FastPass Plus, you could make those reservations 30 days in advance if you did not stay on property, 60 days if you were staying on property. With Genie Plus as a pass holder, you're either paying for it or you're not utilizing it. And as somebody who comes quite often, that's quite a bit of cash. Pro number 1, and the purpose of the service, is it allows you to skip the lines in Disney World. That's hard to ignore because who doesn't want to skip a line? Number 2, by skipping those lines, another pro is that this is a time saver. Even if you don't like the service, that one is undeniable. For example, today, I skipped an 80-minute line for Slinky Dog Dash and waited a total of about 5 minutes. That's hard to ignore. One pro that we actually really enjoy is that it lets you avoid the 60-day early planning day. Now, I'm a type A planner. I think it's a lot of fun to plan in advance, but not everyone does. So this doesn't force people to plan their vacation more than they probably want to. While this service might get pricey, it is nothing compared to the Express Pass pricing over in Universal, which can cost up to $170 per person per day. Another pro that we don't think people mention enough is that the 2-hour cooldown plans offer a little bit more flexibility for your day than you would think. Yeah, people don't really love waiting on those lightning lane times, but you can utilize that 2 hours to go eat lunch, wait in line for a different ride, go see a show. There's a lot you can do with that 2 hours, and I think it offers a nice amount of flexibility. Another thing that we really like is you can choose when to buy it. If you don't want to buy Genie Plus, you don't have to, and we think that's a real pro in our book. Another new pro that's actually just started recently is that it now includes ride photos for annual pass holders in Walt Disney World, which it previously didn't. So if you're an annual pass holder who does not have the photo pass selection on your pass, you can at least get your ride photos included. Also, over in Disneyland, one major pro is all photo passes included with the purchase of Genie Plus over there. So buy Genie Plus and you get your pictures included. So now that you get the pros and cons of Genie, how to use it, what it is, all of that, when is the best time to buy it? Because there are good times and there are bad times. So there are going to be 4 different situations that I think you should always buy Genie Plus in, or at least consider buying it. First is when you go to Magic Kingdom or Hollywood Studios. These parks have some of the most popular rides in Walt Disney World, and lines can get crazy long. The second is when you're there during peak crowd seasons. Prices are going to be higher for sure, but it's going to help you get onto more rides and get to do more experiences than you would if you're just waiting in all of the standbys. 3, if this is a once-in-a-lifetime trip, or at least a once-in-a-long-time trip, and you want to experience as much as possible, we think you probably should buy it. 4, if you are a type A person and you love to plan, love to fine-tune a plan, and love to retune that fine-tuned plan to the maximum efficiency, we think you should buy it. I gotta be honest, I am in that last category. So type A people, I'm with you on buying it. So when I think you should avoid paying for it is when you're heading to probably Epcot or at Disney's Animal Kingdom. Now these lines can get pretty long, but there are fewer rides in these parks, so you have more time throughout the day to wait it out. I also don't think you should buy it during slow season. Disney doesn't necessarily have slow seasons the way they used to, but after the holidays in January and until spring break in March, the crowds will drop in Walt Disney World, so it doesn't necessarily make as much sense to pay for it. This is a great time to save some money on Genie Plus by not buying it, and it's not that lines will be non-existent. The lines will still be there, but they will definitely be shorter than if you're coming in the summer months. If you arrive later in the day and you only have a few hours left in the park, we don't think that you should buy Genie. If you wait to buy Genie Plus until the afternoon and start booking your Lightning Lane sections then, you won't really have that many options left to make it worth your while or worth your money. Finally, if your main goal is to ride an individual Lightning Lane attraction like Rise of the Resistance or Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind, then we really don't think you should buy Genie because that's not going to help you. That's going to be the case where you buy that individual Lightning Lane instead of buying Genie Plus. So now that we've broken all of that down, what most people are curious to know is what is the future of Genie Plus? FastPass was around for almost 20 years. So what does the future look like for Genie? Honestly, there is no way to tell the future of Genie Plus. That's just the truth, friends. But we can kind of gather what we think might happen. So currently, Genie is undergoing some changes, we think. In the past, each park only had one individual Lightning Lane, but in the very beginning of Genie Plus, all the way back in 2021, each park offered 2. That changed within the first few months of the service launch because people really weren't a fan of buying that many individual Lightning Lanes and Genie Plus, but with the addition of Tron, it looks like Magic Kingdom is going to have 2 individual Lightning Lanes. So now that Disney has changed that, what does that mean for guests? That means if you want to skip the line for both Tron and for Seven Dwarfs Mine Train over in Magic Kingdom, and skip the rest of the lines using Disney's Genie Plus service, that can be almost $90 per person per day to skip the lines in Magic Kingdom on peak days. Now, do we think that this particular change could signal the return of a second individual Lightning Lane per park? Not necessarily, but we know that it's a possibility now with these 2 rides, so just be sure to keep following AllEars.net because we will keep you updated on if that ever does happen. Alrighty, so for my 3rd Lightning Lane of the day, I did the other option of booking your Genie. I am not going to use that 2-hour cooldown. I actually booked one for right now for Star Tours, so I'm going to go ahead and head over there, and then as soon as I tap in, I can go ahead and book another Lightning Lane. So since you guys have been listening so well throughout class, I've decided to give the entire class a little treat, and that's going to be my favorite 5 tips for using Genie Plus. And yes, it's like when you all get 100 on the test and you get like a little treat. That's what this is. The first of my favorite tips is going to be using that rope drop strategy to ride popular rides with no wait twice. If you rope drop a ride and then get a Genie Plus Lightning Lane for it later, you're going to be able to ride some of the most popular rides in Disney World twice with low wait times. Great examples of this are Tower of Terror and Rock and Roller Coaster. At the time of filming, Rock and Roller Coaster is closed, but that is one of our ideal rope drop strategies, is to ride these 2 with the park open and then immediately grab a Lightning Lanes for both of them when you can. My second favorite tip and trick is if times are not ideal for those lightning lanes, go ahead and book the lightning lane, but don't exit out. Continue to refresh and then use Genie's new feature where you can book and use a new lightning lane and cancel the old one at the same time. This way you don't have to gamble and you are guaranteed a lightning lane even if a better one doesn't pop up. But like we've discussed, a better one is almost always going to pop up. You can do this at any time with any of your lightning lanes, so always keep checking for those better times. Number 3 is just what I have done all day, and that's make sure to set your alarms. Lightning lanes can go pretty quickly, especially during the busy season, so do not get caught losing track of time. You don't want to look down and it's 7:01. Always make sure you are setting your alarms, especially for that 7 a.m. first drop. Traditionally, I set an alarm about 5 minutes before my next lightning lane selection, so I can remember to check my Disney experience and kind of plan for which lightning lane I want to grab next. Typically, I like to go by my priority list, but if I see something is pushed out way late into the day, but I know I want to ride it, I will typically go for that one. Number 4 of my top favorite 5 things for Genie Plus is you can book a lightning lane, individual lightning lane, and a virtual queue spot all at the same time if you have 3 pairs of hands and 3 My Disney Experience apps. Virtual queue opens at 7 a.m. and 1 p.m. For example, Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind still utilizes a virtual queue over in Epcot. So at 7 a.m., you and your party on the My Disney Experience app are going to go to the virtual queue section of the app right on the home screen if you scroll down a bit. At 7 a.m., the times for your virtual queue will drop. You join that virtual queue, and that means you get to go and skip a little bit of a line. If everyone is connected on the My Disney Experience app, you can do this whether you are linked or even if you are just using logins to one account. Although we recommend everyone setting up their own My Disney Experience accounts ahead of the trip and making sure you are linked up so everyone can join together. Utilizing all 3 of these, having 3 different hands, will let you grab a virtual queue, an individual lightning lane, and your first lightning lane selection of the day all at once, so you don't have to worry about times going away more quickly. If you can't do this, you're going to want to prioritize those virtual queues and then the individual. You're going to want to move as fast as you can for these options because you can miss out on good times if you're going slow. In parks without virtual queues, you're going to want to prioritize your Genie Plus booking over that individual lightning lane, but you're going to still want to move as fast as you can. Finally, my 5th favorite tip is to make sure you are using Genie Plus pricing as a clue to figure out how busy it's going to be. Even if you don't buy Genie Plus, you can still look at the price, and though it's mostly negative that Genie Plus now has date-based pricing, you can at least use that to get an idea of crowd levels. Starting at midnight the night before, you can see how much Genie Plus is going to cost, and that's going to give you an indication of how busy the Disney parks are and what to expect for the day. $15 is a slow day, but 20 plus is probably going to be pretty busy. Remember that Genie Plus pricing is the same across all 4 parks, and other parks may be busier than some, so it's not the perfect tell, but it can help you at least kind of predict what your day will look like and how busy crowds will be. Now, those are just my 5 favorite tips because I think they help me the most, and they make sure that I personally get the most out of Genie Plus. But we have tons more tips and tricks over on the channel, so if you're curious, you can go check out our full sneaky Genie Plus tips over on the channel now. Well, Breedlove, Quincy, and Sage are going to show you some of the best tips and tricks across all of the Disney parks to see how you can use Genie the best. Alrighty, so I have tapped into my next lightning lane. I was able to make one at 12:30 for Star Tours over here. It is now 12:40 because that lightning lane was immediately at 12:30. So I get to ride this one and then immediately turn around and I made another one for Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run tonight at 7. So that means that I did not have to wait for that 2-hour cooldown. I got to book one as soon as I was able. If you like this video, go ahead and like and subscribe. Now you can go check out my entire former cast member reveals why Genie Plus happened video up on the channel now. I'll see you there.